Hey, what's up, everybody? Ralph here. So I got another article, this article on Business Insider, and it's talking about a 37-year-old with $108,000 in student debt, and he lives in a school bus because rent is unaffordable. And his biggest regret is getting the student loan. Now, if you watch any of my videos, then you already know how I feel about student loans. I think it's the biggest scam, right? Unless you're going to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, something in science, math, technology, whatever, it's a huge scam. Most degrees are worthless, right? Most people that get their degrees, years later they find that they're doing something outside of the degree, and they've accumulated a massive amount of student debt. And clearly, from this guy, he's done the same, right? And it's an ongoing crisis. You got $1.7 trillion in student debt. People are trying to get trying to get the president to cancel. So for me, it's just like, fortunately for me, I was able to, I didn't have that much money in student loans, and I was able to pay all of it off in 2018 because of affiliate marketing. But I was able to get rid of it. So lucky for me, I just went to undergrad and that was it. I didn't feel like going to get my master's or PhD. I was done with school, didn't like school. Wasn't for me. I was able to graduate, but I digress. So let's get into this article. So Nick Crocker found the solution to spiking rent costs, moving into a school bus, but his $108,000 student debt balance is continuing to hold him back. When Crocker, now 37, started his education at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University. He did not anticipate the economic recession he was graduating into in 2008. He was unable to land a job using his bachelor's degree, and right out of college, he moved to Pennsylvania and began working 2 jobs, one at Jimmy John's and one at Olive Garden. So you see that he went to school. He went to School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University. I don't know what that school is, or public environment. I don't think that's going to be a high-paying job. See, and that's the thing. Most people get degrees in jobs that just don't pay much, right? So they accumulate all this debt, and then they get this degree, and then they get out of school, and then they find themselves not able to get a high-skilled job. And obviously, the 2008 recession didn't help. But if you were actually had a degree that was useful, then obviously as time went on, you'd be able to find something, right? So during this time, he was able to keep up with a $540 monthly student debt payment when it doubled to $1,089 a month once his graduation repayment plan ended. The only option available to Crocker that would decrease the monthly payment was the extended time it would take to pay off the balance. Crocker knew something had to give. I was tired of throwing away half of my income on rent and not being able to save a dime in the process, Crocker told Insider. So I decided to build out a school bus. And this is not the first time I heard somebody talk about building out a school bus. There was somebody else, or he had a van or something like that. People are like starting to live in vans, like building up school buses. Like this is like the new American dream, like, right? Instead of buying a home, you're gonna be buying a van or a school bus to build out and make it your home. And this is not something that most people want to put the situation they want to put themselves in, right? Everybody wants a home, a roof over their head, a place that they know they can go home to and feel comfortable. But when you have so much debt, student debt, and it's stopping you from doing the things that you want to do, then you got to resort to things like this. I'm not sure where he lived. Hopefully in this article they'll get to it. But I'm guessing maybe California, where it's ridiculously expensive, right? So that's my guess, but let's see. Since October 2018, Crocker and his fiance have been living in a 120 square foot school bus. He spent $25,000 to renovate. He pays around $550 a month. You got $25,000 to renovate. You could have threw that down on a student loan, but whatever. He pays around $550 a month to rent out a backyard parking lot of space in Portland, Oregon. Okay, it's in Oregon, close to Cali. Even with those extra savings from rent payments, Crocker defaulted on some of his student loans because he was not making sufficient income to afford basic necessities alongside the student loans. He's only continued to make payments on a loan that his father co-signed to ensure his dad wouldn't be impacted by a potential default. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden is in the process of deciding whether millions of federal student loan borrowers will get relief. Recent reports suggest he is considering $10,000 in relief for borrowers making under $150,000 a year, an announcement the administration will likely make in July or August, closer to when the pandemic pause on student loan payments is set to expire after August 31st. My guess is not going to do anything, but I will admit that he is trying to push something with the PSLF, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. If you're in like a public service and you're working towards that, I guess the administration has been working hard to resolve those issues. I know a couple of people that were able to get that resolved. They were knocked out like $10,000, $20,000 of student loans. So if you're someone that's in the public service, you probably have a better chance than if you're not. So I think this administration is really pushing to help people that were in the public service. So other than that, I don't think they're going to do anything with student loans, but then that's just me. All right. So with the majority of Crocker's debt being private loans, Biden's relief, there you go. Biden's relief won't make a significant dent for him and about 3 million other borrowers with private loans. He says he wishes he'd known the high lifelong cost of higher education when he was in high school. It may have prevented him from being in this current situation. Now that's a lot of things. People, when you get out of high school, you don't really understand the significant cost of that. Even though it's in your face, like you're borrowing this X amount of dollars and you're going to have to eventually pay that back. But when you're like, oh, I want to go to school or whatever, just sign it. You don't really pay attention and understand the negative effect it's going to have to you long term, right? So I think we need to do a better job of educating people and doing that when it comes to taking out these loans and obviously revamping this whole, university, this 4-year degree, and like just get people away from that because clearly it's not working, right? So while college has a great way for me to figure things out, it was a really expensive way for me to do that, Crocker said. I wouldn't do that again. I would have gone into the trades. The student loan debt is by far the biggest regret. It's too much money to let somebody borrow at 18 years old. And this is for me, like, where are the parents in this? Like, they should understand this. Like, this has been a situation that people constantly talk about all the time, the student debt. But yet we have year after year, we have students that are struggling with student debt. So sometimes you got to like blame parents because like, where are the parents in this? Like, I understand you want your children to go to get an education, but you need to understand the impact that taking on so much debt can have on a person long term. And I could, an 18-year-old, obviously they're not going to really understand, but you would at least expect the parents to have a better grasp of this. So, I don't know. So the reason the majority of Crocker's student debt is held privately is because when he was applying for federal financial aid in high school, his parents' income was too high. It was high enough that they only qualified for limited aid. Still, he needed funds because he was responsible for some of the expenses and private student loans were readily available. So Crocker turned to those, but later found that the high interest rates on private loans make it difficult to touch the original balance borrowed. And that's the thing. If he'd had a federal loan, he probably had a better chance of probably getting his debt canceled by administration. But since it's a private loan, good luck with that. It's probably not gonna happen. I wasn't chipping my way out of this, Crocker said. $540 a month was just covering interest. So at some point, we're not getting out from underneath this. Before Crocker began falling behind in his monthly payments, he said that he had a great credit score. After the loan company raised his monthly payments in 2015, his wages at his grocery store job were garnished. Wow. So he picked up carpentry and other jobs on the side to keep up. Now at his adventure van building, making $25,000 an hour in Portland, he said he knows his current living situation is not sustainable in the long run. He will eventually need to face high rent prices and his 6-figure student loan debt load. So as you can see, obviously, that impacts his credit score. The fact that they garnish his wages. It got to that point, and that's what happens. And that's the thing. You're not making payments. They're eventually going to go out, and that's the federal. And that's the thing. You're dealing with these private companies. They can go after if they probably sue him or anything like that. They can go after his wages, and that's probably what eventually that happened to him. So So, all right, to continue, as Insider previously reported, average rent in the U.S. has increased to $1,722 a month, which is more than 30% of the national median income, accounting for taxes. While mortgage debt is the largest form of consumer debt in the U.S., student debt follows right behind, currently totaling $1.7 trillion for over 40 million Americans. But while the Education Department oversees federal loans, private student loans can fly under the radar, which is why the department has taken action to ensure private lenders don't steer students in an affordable debt. I mean, how do you do that? Like if tuition is an X amount every year, I mean, it's obviously for most people it's unaffordable. Clearly, there's an issue. Like a lot of people that are graduating from these undergrad programs and taking on debt cannot afford it, or we wouldn't have this crisis in the first place. So that, you know, for most people, it's unaffordable, right? And you know, it still hasn't really said what his degree was. But you know, based on the school he went to, it doesn't seem like it's a degree that will gain him, you know, a high salary, right? So the Federal Student Aid Office in March detailed requirements for colleges to better inform students about the risk of private student loan options that can carry costly fees, which in a blog post that stakes could not be higher for students they figured out to pay for college. Crocker said he's on the savings plan right now by living in a bus, but wishes he'd gone to a trade school rather than take on student loans. I would love to be able to afford to buy a house right now, but it's not the best market to be buying a house, Crocker says. So we're living in a 120 square foot school bus, and while it's been great for us to save money, it's cramped, and we want more than that. Of course it's cramped, especially he has a fiance. Like eventually, you know, you're gonna want kids. I mean, clearly you can't make this transition into a family in a school bus. You don't want your children living in a school bus, right? So you got to start making a plan in order to figure out what you're going to do, unless you're not going to have kids for a while. But eventually, you know, I mean, who knows what, you know, the fiance wants, but, you know, eventually she's going to want to build a family, and living in a school bus is just not something that, you know, you're going to want to do long term. So you're going to have to figure that out. You know, you're going to either have to make more money, or you're going to have to figure out how to tackle that debt, because like you said, it gets cramped, and it's not some place that you want to deal with long term. Maybe you go move to another state. I don't know, but yeah, you're gonna have to figure it out. And for a lot of people, you know, managing your money is something a lot of people struggle with. And if he can find a way to just tackle his debt, I mean, he'll be in a better situation. But this is an issue for a lot of people, right? A lot of people, you know, $1.7 trillion is the debt, student loan debt. Is something a lot of people are dealing with. So I don't know, for a lot of people, like for me, like I said, I was fortunate enough to, you know, at least have some scholarships when I went to school, and eventually I came out with only about $12,000 of student loan debt, so I didn't have that issue, and I was able to pay it all off in 2018. Thanks for, you know, in good part because of, you know, affiliate marketing. But as you can see, man, people are resorting to you know, living in school buses, vans, and you know, this is probably the new norm now. A lot of people will be living in tents. I think in California, people are living in tents in people's backyards. Like I think people are like, I think I saw something, read something about how people are renting tents in people's backyards. You know, that's crazy. Like you can't live like that, right? But that's what people are, you know, resorting to. Things are, you know, the cost of living is growing, you know, is so much. So, and then on top of that, you have these student loans. It just makes it difficult to do something. So, all right, so that's all I got for you guys today. You got any comments or questions, make sure to leave it down below. Hit the like button, share, and please, if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe, all right? So you guys take care and have a good one. Later.